Hi guys, we're going to be going through making these characters down here, these adorable characters in the Nativity set. I already did the zipper bag and posted that tutorial, but I'm going to be posting the tutorial for these guys here. And I went ahead and used one layer of tearaway, but what you really need to do to get better results is use one layer of tearaway. Go ahead and do the first step in whichever character you're doing, which is the placement step. And then once the placement step is down, you should put another piece of tearaway right here. Then you can add your piece of fabric. Say we were doing the angel, say you want it pink. Then you put your fabric down and you run the next step, step 2, which is going to be the tack down step. So it's going to tack down a second piece of tearaway in your design. You can just hoop 2 layers of tearaway if you want, but then you're going to waste all this extra tearaway, and you really don't need to do it that way. You could go ahead and just put it like that around your design, and then put your fabric, and then go ahead and run step 2. That's going to give you more stability, and not only for the fill stitches. You notice a lot of these characters have some thick fill stitches. All of them have it except for the little sheep. So the sheep doesn't really need the extra layer, and the baby Jesus has some, but not a ton. That one's probably fine too. I didn't have any issues with that, with just one thing of stabilizer. But you'll notice on some of these other ones, you have a little bit of the outline. It's just a tiny bit off, but it's because I didn't have the right amount of stabilizer. So I'm just going to suggest at the beginning to go ahead and do it this way for all your designs. Besides getting your best results, these are little play characters, and if you have 2 layers of stabilizer in there, they're going to be more sturdy too. They're not going to fold. This is just 1 layer of stabilizer, so it's going to make them a little sturdier. So there's actually a couple benefits to it. So I just wanted to suggest that before we start getting into the tutorial, and you will get your best results by doing that. Hope that helps. Hi guys, it's Angela. I'm doing a tutorial today. It's Parker on the Porch's Nativity characters. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do the angel. That's which one I'm going to do. And I already have a tutorial up there on the Nativity Zipper Bag, so you can go watch that. And these little characters fit inside that cute little bag. So I wanted to go ahead and show you. I have the 4x4 hoop on my machine, and this is just tearaway stabilizer. I'm going to go ahead and get control of my machine, because what I do, there's the angel, that's what it looks like. I have it loaded up. The very first step is going to be a placement stitch, and your fabric's going to go over that, so it doesn't matter what color that is. But your next step, I'm going to jump a step so I can see what it is. Okay, so I got control of my machine. If you see, when you start, you'll see this little needle with a plus and a minus. If you push that, you're going to get control of your stitches and your steps. So any of these needles that are right here with needles that are the negative numbers, that's going to jump back that many stitches if you push it. And the ones with pluses are going to jump forward that many stitches. Not steps, stitches within a step. So if you see this little green crosshairs, that's where my machine's going to start. And if I press plus 10, it's going to go forward 10 stitches within that step. But I'm going to actually jump steps because I want to see what the next step is, so I can pick which color thread I want to use. This just saves me from changing my thread for the placement and then changing it again for whatever's next. So I'm going to go ahead and jump 1 step forward. Okay, so it is the tack down. Sometimes it's tack down, sometimes it's details within the angel, within the thing you're creating. So the tack down is the second step. So I'm going to go back to my first step, and I am using pink as the main body of this angel. So I'm going to actually load pink thread, because on the tack down stitch you will see those. So I'm going to put pink in my machine, and I will come back and show you what we're doing. Okay, so I went ahead and put pink in my machine. I have my tearaway down, and we're going to stitch step 1 directly onto the tearaway, and it's going to be your placement stitch for the angel's body. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'll come back and show you what it looks like. That's what your placement stitch looks like. I'm going to go ahead and put my fabric over the whole angel like this. Make sure all your placement stitches are covered, else you will have to start over. So once you have it all covered, then I'm going to go ahead and stitch step 2 directly onto my fabric. I'm using felt here. You can use lots of different things. I'm using felt. So step 2 is going to be the tack down, and I'm using the pink because it matches my pink fabric, and I'm going to go ahead and run that, and I will come back and show you what that looks like. Okay, this is what it ended up looking like. So our next step is going to be the placement stitch. You can see it's the placement stitch for the angel's face. So I went ahead and changed my thread. It's a placement stitch, so it's going to be covered, but your next step is going to be the applique of the face. So I just went ahead and got a color that somewhat matched my felt for the face. So go ahead and stitch step 3 directly onto your base fabric, and I will come back and show you what that looks like. Okay, you can see that it's this right here is the face. So appliquing is anything where you put fabric on top of a fabric, whether it be a shirt, whether it be these cute little characters or it's bags. We're going to applique this. So I'm going to go ahead and get a big enough piece of fabric to cover that placement stitch. All you need to worry about is that it's covered. You don't have to worry about anything else. And then I'm going to go ahead, and I already changed my string, and I'm going to go ahead and stitch step 4 onto that piece. This is going to be her face, so I kind of have a peach color onto that piece, and I will come back and show you what that looks like. Okay guys, this is what it looks like. We have the applique face on there. Now I am going to use these applique scissors. These are the best ones to use for appliquing stuff. It just has this curved edge. I'm going to go ahead and cut, and I'll show you why these are good. Now you're going to want to cut really close to the stitch line, and these scissors allow you to get close to the stitches without cutting them. You want to get all this excess material off, all this peach that I'm using. So I'm just gonna hold the corner. Hopefully I can angle this so you can see, and then I'm gonna just start cutting next to the edge. And I'm gonna turn and hold the corner and cut. I'm gonna hold the corner. Now you just want to get close to your stitches where it's all even and it looks good. So I'm just going to clean it up a little bit. I always take some extra time to make sure when I'm appliquing that I did a good job with trimming, because your project isn't going to look very good if you don't have your trim very well. And that's really just to make it even and close to the stitches. Cut that fuzz off. Okay. So there you can see it. I cut around all the stitches and the rest of that fabric's gone. So I'm going to go ahead and bring this back over to our machine, and we're going to do our next step. Okay guys, we are back on our machine, and the next step is going to stitch the detail hands. So it's going to use thread, and sorry, it's not focusing. I'm going to use the same thread that I outlined the face with. It's kind of like a lighter skin color. So I'm going to go ahead and run step 5, and I'll come back and show you what that looks like. Okay, that's what the hands look like right there. Now I'm going to go ahead and run the next detail step, which is step 6, and it is the wings. So I'm going to go ahead and run that step. I changed my thread to this metallic silver. I think will look nice. So I will come back and show you what that looks like. Okay guys, this is what the wings ended up looking like. Now the next step is going to be the arms and some of the outline of the dress. I'm going to go ahead and make that the silver as well. I could make it the pink, but I don't think it will only show up as well as this outline. So I think I'm going to keep that the metallic silver. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I will come back and show you what it looks like. Go ahead and run step 7. Outline looks like. Now the next step, step 8, is going to be stitching the angel's hair. Now I'm going to go ahead and make it this really light pale yellow. But keep in mind when you're picking this color of the hair, it's going to be touching the halo, which most people would make like a yellow color. I'm going to make mine like a metallic gold, and hopefully it stands out enough against this yellow hair. But keep that in mind when you're picking the hair color. But I'm going to go ahead and stitch step 8, and it's going to be the angel's hair. Okay guys, there's what the hair ended up looking like. Now the next detail is the angel's eyes. I went ahead and changed my thread to black, and I'm going to go ahead and stitch those out. It's step 9. Okay, that's what her eyes look like. The next detail step is step 10, and it's her little mouth. So I changed to a color I want for her mouth. I'm going to go ahead and stitch that out, and I'll come back and show you what it looks like. Step 11, which is the halo. I'm going to go ahead and stitch that out, and I'm using this metallic gold. So I will stitch that, and I will come back and show you what it looks like. Guys, this is what our angel looks like so far. Now all we have is our 2 outline stitches, so we need to put our back onto our angel. So I'm going to flip the hoop over. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do the same color felt back here. You just want to make sure you have a big enough piece that covers all the stitch lines. So that's fine. That's definitely fine. Okay. And I'm just going to take some Scotch tape. Yes. There. I'm going to just place some up here. Okay, then you flip it over, put it back on your hoop. And the first outline, there's 2 separate outlines on here. The first one is the top portion of our head. I went ahead and put in this light yellow color, and I'm going to outline the top portion of the head with that. So you can see that that's what's running next. That's step 12. I'm going to go ahead and run that, and then I will show you what that looks like. Line above the head. Now it's going to do the bottom half of the angel's outline, and I'm actually going to use that metallic silver, so then it's going to outline the wings and the silver. It's going to outline this dress and change it to the silver instead of the pink, but I think I'm okay with that. So I'm going to go ahead and run that step. It's step 13, which is your last step. I'm going to go ahead and run that, and I'll come back and show you what it looks like. Okay guys, this is what the front looks like. This is what the back looks like. Now you can take it off of your hoop because we are done stitching. And I'm going to take all this tearaway off. And I'm going to take this tape off. And now I'm going to use these little scissors to cut around this angel. And it doesn't matter if you look from the front or you look from the back, the stitch lines are the same. So I'm going to just get close to the stitch lines. That allows me to have a guide and kind of be more consistent if I'm close to them. I tend to be a little more consistent with my lines. And I put my point just to the edge when I get into corners. I kind of made that a little jaggedy, which I don't like. I'll cut that off. Okay. And I'm going to come over here. Okay, when I get to these corners, I put the tip of my scissors right outside the stitch lines, and I pull down once to get one long clean cut, and then that ensures that I don't cut the stitches as well. So I line it up.
Again, I'll show you here. When I get to a corner like this, I put the tip of my scissors right to the edge where the stitches meet, and then I push down once. And then that ensures that you don't cut the stitches, and it gives you one long cut too. Okay, we have her all cut out, and you can adjust some different cuts if you need them to be cleaner. Now there's little strings on the back of here. I'm going to cut that, but be careful not to cut the knots because you don't want it to come off, but I'm going to clean it up a little bit. Get down here, there's another one. Okay. Okay, now here's your little angel that you get to play with. She turned out super cute. Oh, I have some string on the front. Super cute. There's the front, there's the back, and then here's our zipper bag that we made earlier. There's a separate tutorial for the zipper bag. And now you can put this little angel in the bag. You can see her size. This is the 5x7 bag. You can see her size. She fits in just like that. Okay, so I was originally just going to do the tutorial for one of these felt little characters. I'm going to go ahead and run a video for all of them because I need to make the whole set for my daughter anyways. And they pretty much all work exactly the same way. So you can choose to stop the video at this point, or you can continue to watch through all the characters. So I'm going to go ahead and start the next character, and I believe I'm doing the little lamb. So join me, or thank you for watching this one, and I would love to see your guys' projects. Go ahead and post them on the Park on the Porch Facebook group. We would love to see them. Thank you so much, and I hope this helps. Hi guys, we're moving on to the lamb or sheep now, and our first step is to go ahead and do that placement stitch. The next step is going to be the tack down. I already looked, so I know that I want my color to be gray because I'm going to do a gray lamb. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch step 1, and I'll come back and show you what that looks like. And we're just stitching it right onto tearaway, and I will come back and show you. Okay. That's what your placement looks like. You just want to get a piece of fabric big enough to cover that. So I'm going to use felt here. You get it placed there, and then you're going to go ahead and run step 2, which is going to be your tack down. So I will come back and show you what that looks like. Okay, that's what it looks like. Now we are going to do the fill of the ears. So I'm going to go ahead and do step 3, and I changed my thread to pink because I want the ears to be pink. And I'll come back and show you what that looks like. Okay, that's what the fill of his ears ended up looking like. Our next step is step 4, and we're going to do his eyes, nose, mouth, and hooves. So I'm going to go ahead and run that, and I will come back and show you what that looks like. Okay, my next step is going to be to do the placement stitch for the bottom part of the body. We're going to applique that. So step 5 is going to show you that placement step so you know how much fabric to put there. So I'm going to go ahead and run that, and I will come back and show you what it looks like. Okay, it just went ahead and outlined his body. I have white in so you can kind of see the white right here. It's just this spot right here. So now you're going to want to put fabric there. I'm going to use this furry fabric. So I'm going to go ahead and set that down like that. And then I'm going to go ahead and run the next step. But because this is furry, I'm going to put a little piece of water stabilizer on this. And that I'm going to show you is, this is pretty much what it is. It's water soluble stabilizer, and it's called WSS is what people refer to it as. And it's really just some plastic stabilizer. And the main use for it is for doing like
bath towels, something that has like a nap to it and thick. And if you just go ahead and stitch directly onto a bath towel, you're not really going to see those stitches. They're all going to sink down into that fabric. And so it's mainly used on towels, but it's used for furry, like minky. It's to help the stitches not sink into the fabric. So really, I use it on really thick, like kind of squishy vinyl. It helps with that, and then it's going to help with this really fuzzy fabric here. So I'm going to go ahead and use it on this just because if I was using felt, I wouldn't. I'm going to go ahead and just do that, and I will come back, and all you do is put a little bit on the front over there, and then I'm going to stitch it, and I will show you what that looks like when I'm done. Okay, this is what it looks like. So it's stitched right onto that stabilizer. I'm going to go ahead and do the next part before I cut this, just because I know it's going to do the applique up here as well. So you can see step 7 is the placement stitch for the applique on the top of the lamb's head. And since it's not going to interfere with this one, I'm going to go ahead and run that. Otherwise, normally you would cut and trim this first and then move on to the next thing, but because it's not overlapping, I'm going to do them both right in a row, so when I take it off the hoop I can cut them at the same time. So I'm going to go ahead and run step 7, and that's just the placement, so I'm going to just run it directly on to the felt. I'll come back and show you what that looks like. Okay, that's what it looks like. It's just this little area right here. I'm going to go ahead and put my applique fabric up there, and I'm going to run the tack down stitch. It doesn't matter exactly where it goes, just as long as it covers that placement. We're going to cut the excess off in a second. So I'm going to go ahead and put that down, and then I'm going to put some more of the water stabilizer over that as well, and then I will stitch step 8, and that's the tack down, and I'll come back and show you what that looks like. Okay guys, this is what it looks like. I have both my appliques down. Now I'm going to go ahead and take this water stabilizer off. It just pulls. It's just plastic and it pulls really easy. It's pretty easy to remove. And do that. It's pulling off the outside. Now you can see that it's still on the inside right there. I like to use this little tool right here. It's called a seam fix, and it has a seam ripper in it. But what's neat about it, especially with the water stabilizer, it has a rubber tip, and it really helps it just take it off. See, all I did was that, and it pulled the whole thing up. So I'm going to do it again here, and it pulled the whole thing up. That's all I needed to do, and both of it's gone. Now, they also sell a large one. This is called Seam Fix. There's 2 sizes. I bought them separately. They didn't come in the same package, but this one has rubber on the bottom and on the top, and it has a bigger seam ripper in it. It's a really cool tool. Okay, so now we are going to use our applique scissors, which are these, and we are going to cut around all these stitches to get this excess fabric off. So I'm going to go ahead and start. And I'm just cutting around close to the stitches without cutting the stitches. I might cut a little bit of the fur down by the bottom so you can see his feet a little better, because his feet just barely poke out on this. Now I'm going to clean it up. So I'm just cutting a little bit of the fluff as well. I'm not just getting the edge, I'm cutting some of the fluff down there so you can kind of see his feet poking out a little bit better. I always take a little bit of extra time making sure when I'm appliquing that I get close to the edges, because it's really going to make a difference. Your design's not going to look very good if you don't do a good job at this part. So I pretty much got that part done, so I'm not going to go do the top. Fuzzy fabric can be really cute, but it's so messy.
Sorry, bear with me. I'm just taking a little bit of extra time getting it as clean as I can. I want it to be fuzzy, but I want to be able to see the stuff under to the side of it as well. Like right now, I want to see his ears too. Okay. I normally have a roller, fabric roller. I have it somewhere, so I'm just going to go like this. Normally I take a fabric roller and I just roll it over here. It's those ones that have tape on it. And I normally have it like right here, but I'll have to look for it. And then I just do that and it takes all this excess little fuzz off because I was cutting tiny little pieces. Okay, but there we go. It's cut up next to the edge. It's cute little furry, just a nice little added touch for this little guy. So now we are on the very last step, so we need to put our back on. So I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to get a piece of felt. I'm going to line them with the, or put the back as the same, and you just need a piece big enough to go around all those stitches. So I'm going to put the gray there, and I'm going to put some tape because we're on the back of our hoop. Okay, and now we are going to run that very last stitch, which is basically going to run all the way around this little guy, and it's going to put the back, connect the back to the front. So I'm going to go ahead and run step 9, which is our last step, and then I will come back and show you what that looks like. Okay guys, I ran that last step. There's the front of our little lamb. There's the back. And I found my roller. This is what I was talking about. It's just that the tape ones, and you just go like this and it's picking up all that little fur that's on there. The other thing you could do, like especially since this is such a little design, you could just take some Scotch tape, flip it over like this in a circle, and then just go like this, and that would pick it up too. So just another way to do it. If you don't have the other roller, you don't necessarily need it. Okay, we are done stitching, so I'm taking it off my hoop. I'm going to pull all the stabilizer off. Okay, now I'm going to use these little scissors right here. These are kind of my go-to scissors for little designs. So I'm just going to chop off this excess just so it's not in my way. Now I'm going to just cut like I normally do just to get around the sheep. And I'm not going to get all the way into these stitches because we have a lot of fur going on here. I'm going to kind of stay on the outside. I kind of always use the same rule of thumb. I put my scissors all the way to the edge of the stitches on where I'm trying to go and just outside of them, and then I do one cut so I don't risk cutting those stitches, and it also gives it a cleaner look because I'm not doing a lot of sharp, jagged, short little jagged cuts. So I'm coming around here. I might clean up some of this after I get done and look at what it looks like. I'm not sure I want the gray to show over the white, but I might. I'm just going to get around it first and then make a judgment call. Okay, I'm coming around to the feet, almost done. Okay, there we go. Oops, sorry, I'm not showing you in the right place. There he is. There's his back. You can cut these little strings right here. Try to avoid cutting the little knot that's right there, but you can cut these down so they're not hanging everywhere. Okay, there he is. I'm just going to look at him a sec. I think he's pretty cute, but I'm probably going to cut just a tiny bit more. I don't love that the gray shows on the outside of the white spot, so I might just cut that a little closer without cutting stitches. I'm usually bad. I try to get it cut so close that sometimes I end up getting the stitches and I have to start over, so I don't know. Just gonna get a little bit more off. I just don't want that gray just completely showing on the outside of the white, just by the fur. That's the only part that bugs me. Okay, got that a little better. Let me get the head a little better. Okay, I'm gonna go with that. Okay, so there's your little sheep lamb. Oops, as I drop it. There you go. And thank you for watching the little sheep lamb. If you know what you're doing, go for it. I'm going to go and move on to the next one. If you want to continue to watch, keep watching. We're going to move on to the next one. Okay guys, we are moving on. I have my tearaway stabilizer down and we are going to go ahead and have my file up. We're going to do this one, Wiseman, and then I'm going to go ahead and do the placement stitch, step 1. And I will come back and show you what that looks like. Okay, there's our placement stitch. Now you just need to put a piece of fabric that's bigger than that. Make sure it goes all the way around it. Okay, now you're going to do step 2, which is going to tack down that felt or fabric. And I will come back and show you what that looks like. Okay, that's what it looks like tacked down. The next step, step 3, is going to be doing the placement step for the face. So I went ahead and changed my thread to the skin color that I wanted, and I'm going to go ahead and stitch the placement stitch right onto here, and I'll come back and show you what that looks like. Okay, that's what the placement looks like. I'm going to get my felt that I want to put there. Just make sure it covers, make sure it covers that space, and you're going to go ahead and tack that down with step 4. So I'm going to run that and I'll come back and show you what it looks like. Okay guys, this is what it looks like. It went ahead and tacked that down. Now this is called appliquing. Anytime you put fabric on top of fabric, it's called appliquing. I'm going to go ahead and use these applique scissors, and these are really nice because they're rounded and they let you get really close to the stitches without cutting them. So we want to get all this excess fabric off of here, so we want to get close up to these stitches. I just hold the corner of the fabric and I cut close to the stitches. Okay, now I take some extra time to make sure that it is as clean as I can get it. Get this area just a little bit closer if I can. Okay, one more, sorry. Okay, it's just close to the stitches. Now I'm going to bring it back over to my machine and we will do the next step. Okay, you can see I brought it back over the machine and I stitched step 5, which was this right here. Now the next step is another detail, which is the belt. So I'm going to go ahead and change my thread and stitch step 6, which is the belt area. I will come back and show you what that looks like. Okay, that's what the belt ended up looking like. Now we're going to go ahead and do the hood thing. So I got my thread in and I'm going to go ahead and stitch step 7 and I'll come back and show you what it looks like. Okay guys, that's stitched out great. Now I am moving on to step 8, which is the beard and hair. So I'm going to go ahead and I changed my thread and I'm going to go ahead and stitch that. And I'll come back and show you what it looks like. Okay, that's what it looks like. I'm going to move on to step 9, which is stitching the eyes. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I will come back and show you what that looks like. Okay, I went ahead and stitched the eyes, and then I also stitched the mouth, which was step 10. Now I'm going to go ahead and do step 11, which is the hip end piece. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch that, and I'll come back and show you what that looks like. Okay guys, this is what it looks like so far.
That kind of blended more than I probably liked, but okay. So the next step is step 12, and it's going to do the outline of the bottom of the body. So the purpose of that is to stitch the back to the front. So we need to put the back on. So you need to flip your hoop over, and you need to get whatever fabric you're doing for the back. You just want to make sure that it covers all of these stitch lines. So I'm going to use this. And then you're going to want to take some tape and just tape it down. Okay, and then I'm going to put it back on my hoop. And make sure it stayed down and didn't fold over. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and stitch step 12, which is this bottom portion, and then I'll come back and show you what it looks like. Okay guys, I went ahead and stitched around the bottom. Now it's gonna, the last step, we're on step 13, is gonna stitch around the head. The reason these two are separate is so you can change colors. So you don't have the same color running down here around the head as well. So if you don't mind the same color going around all the way around it, then you can just keep your thread the same. But the reason Jen separated those two steps is so you can use different colors. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and stitch step 13, and I will come back and show you what it looks like. Okay guys, this is what it ended up looking like, and there's the back and we have the front. So I'm going to go ahead and take it off of my hoop because we are done stitching. I am going to take my stabilizer out. Tape off. Okay. I'm going to take my small scissors and I am going to start cutting around this design. And I just get kind of close to the stitches. This is one of the easier designs to cut out. It's kind of not a lot of little crevices. Okay. Okay, and there you have it. We are done. You have some extra strings back here you can cut. Just don't cut the knot. Okay. Now we are done with this one, and we can move on to the next one. So I will see you over at the machine if you're continuing on with me. Otherwise, thank you for watching. Okay guys, we are moving on to Mary. I have her loaded, and our first step is going to be put tearaway on your hoop. I've done that. I have my thread loaded, and I'm going to go ahead and stitch that placement stitch, and I'll come back and show you what that looks like. Okay guys, there's the placement stitch. Now you're going to want to take your fabric and place it over that stitch line, making sure that you have fabric all the way around it. Okay, now you're going to run the next step, which is step 2, and that's going to be the tack down, and we're going to go ahead and do that. So I will come back and show you what that looks like. Okay, that's what the tack down looks like right there. Now next I'm going to run this detail of the dress. I'm going to go ahead and make this a creamy color, and I'm going to stitch that, and I'll come back and show you what it looks like. Okay guys, that's what the pretty dress thing looks like. It's really cute. So the next step is step 4, and that's going to be the placement step for the applique face. So I went ahead and changed to my flesh color that I'm using, and I'm going to stitch step 4. I'll come back and show you what that looks like. Okay, that's what that placement looks like. I'm going to go ahead and put my face fabric there, and I'm going to stitch step 5, which is going to tack that down. Okay guys, this is what the applique looks like. It went ahead and stitched around that face. Now we need to get all that excess fabric off of there. So I'm using my applique scissors, and I'm going to just hold it up and cut around the stitches. And I'm going to get as close as I can without cutting the stitches. And that's what the scissors is really good for. It's really good at getting close to stitches without cutting them. So it's really an invaluable set of scissors if you do appliquing.
So now I'm going to get as close as I can. I'm going to get back in here and clean up as much as I can. Okay. One more. Okay, and then I'm gonna use this little tape, sticky tape thing to get all that off. It's just a bunch of little bit of the fuzz from the felt, cutting it so small. Okay, so that's what it looks like so far. Now I'm gonna bring it back over the machine and we're gonna do the next step. Okay, I am back on the machine and we are going to run step 6, which is her hair. So I changed my thread and I'm going to go ahead and run that step and I will come back and show you what that looks like. Okay, her hair is all stitched out and I'm going to run the next step, which is step 7, and that is going to be her eyes. So I'm going to go ahead and run those and I will come back and show you what they look like. Okay guys, that's what her eyes look like. Now the next step is to run her mouth. So I went ahead and changed my thread and I'm going to go ahead and run step 8 and I'll come back and show you what that looks like. Okay, there's her mouth. Now we're going to go ahead and run step 9, which is going to be her hood thing. So I went ahead, I'm going to make it cream, so I went ahead and put the cream in. Hopefully that looks okay with the dark blue. It doesn't show through too much, but we will see. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch that, and I will come back and show you what it looks like. Okay, went ahead and stitched the hood. Now the next step is going to be the outline. So that means we need to take our hoop off, and we need to put our back on. So I'm going to go ahead and use the same fabric. You just need to cover the design. And you need to put some tape down. I'm just using Scotch tape. Okay, and you put it back on your hoop. Sorry, I'm doing it one-handed over here. Okay, I'm going to change my, well actually I'm not, because it's doing the head part first, so I'm going to keep my thread the same color. I'm going to go ahead and stitch step 10 and I will come back and show you what that looks like. Okay guys, you can see that it went ahead and stitched around the top. Now we're going to do step 11, which is going to stitch around the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and I'll come back and show you what that looks like. Okay guys, this is what it looks like. That's the front. This is the back. We're going to go ahead and take it off of our hoop. And we're going to take all the stabilizer and tape off. Okay. Now I'm going to use my little scissors to go ahead and cut. I'm just going to match it up to the stitches right there and do one cut. Okay, I'm going to get around this curve. This one's pretty easy to cut too. There's not too much outline detail to it. Okay, I'm going to cut off these excess strings back here, being careful not to cut the knots. Okay, you have the back there, and there you have your Mary. So I'm going to go ahead and put that over here. We are getting there. If you're following through all of them, we have the angel and the little lamb, and we have the wise men, and we have Mary. So we're going to move on to the next one, and I will see you at the machine. Okay guys, here we are. We are on to the next design, which is Joseph. So I'm going to go ahead. I have my stabilizer hooped. This is just tearaway, and I'm going to go ahead and start the design. The first step is going to be the placement stitch. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch that, and I will come back and show you what that looks like. Okay, that's what it looks like. Now we're going to put our fabric down. I'm going to just make sure that it's big enough to go around all that placement stitch line, and I'm going to stitch step 2, which is the tack down. It's going to go ahead and go around the design and tack down this fabric. So I will come back and show you what that looks like. Guys, that's what it looks like. The next step, step 3, is going to be the placement stitch for the face. So I'm going to go ahead, I changed my thread, I'm going to put that placement stitch next, and then I will come back and show you what it looks like. Okay, this is what it looks like. I'm going to go ahead and put my fabric over that, and I'm going to go ahead and stitch the next step, which is step 4, and I will come back and show you what that looks like. Okay guys, this is what it looks like. Our applique's down, so we're going to go ahead and use some applique scissors, and I'm going to cut around these stitches and get this fabric, excess fabric off. Okay, I'm going to take a little bit of extra time to make sure I get it really close and clean. Okay, I'm going to use my little lint roller tape thing to get that extra felt fuzz off. Okay, so that's what it looks like. I'm going to bring it back over to my machine and stitch the next step, and then I'll come back and show you. Okay guys, I'm at my machine, it's back on. I'm going to go ahead and stitch the detail of step 5, which are these details of the robe going down. I'm going to go ahead and use the same cream color that I used on Mary's dress. So I'm going to go ahead and run that, and then I'll come back and show you what that looks like. Okay, this is what it looks like right there. Now I'm going to go ahead and stitch this next detail, and I'm going to keep it the same cream color, and I will come back and show you what that looks like. Okay, went ahead and stitched that. The next detail is going to be the belt. So go ahead and stitch step 7, and I changed my thread, and I'll come back and show you what that looks like. Okay guys, this is what it looks like. Now we're going to do the next step, which is the hood. So I'm going to do that green. I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I will come back and show you what it looks like. Now our next step is going to do the hair in the beard. It's step 9. So I'm going to go, I switched to black, I'm going to do it black, and I'm going to stitch that out, and I'll come back and I will show you what that looks like. Okay guys, this is what it looks like. I'm going to go ahead and do the next step, which is step 10, and that's the eyes. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch the eyes, and I'll come back and show you what it looks like. Okay, the eyes are done. The next step, step 11, is the mouth, and I'm going to keep it black, so I'm going to go ahead and stitch that. I'll come back and show you. Okay guys, we are on step 12. That's the headband portion. I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I will come back and show you what it looks like. Okay guys, this is what it looks like so far. Our next step is to go ahead and do the outline of the bottom, so that means we need to put the back on. So I'm going to use the same color, and I'm going to put it on the back, just make sure it's big enough, and then I'm going to tape it down because it's on the back of our hoop. Okay, it's all on. Then you need to put your hoop back on. And go ahead and change your thread color to whatever you want the outline of the bottom to be. And go ahead and stitch step 13. Okay guys, that's what the outline looks like. Now the next step is to do the outline above the head. So I went ahead and switched my thread to green. And I'm going to go ahead and stitch step 14. I'll come back and show you what that looks like. Okay, we have that stitched on top. Now the next step is to do the cane. It's step 15. I went ahead and changed it to brown. I'm going to stitch that. I'll come back and show you what that looks like. Okay, the cane is done. Now the last step is the hand, and it's step 16. So I went ahead and switched to my hand color, and I'm going to stitch that, and then I will come back and show you what it looks like. Okay guys, this is what it looks like, the front, the back. So you can go ahead and take it off of your hoop. Carry your stabilizer off. Get your tape off. Stick on my hand. Okay, I'm going to use these small scissors, and I am going to just cut around the design. Cutting close to the stitch line, but trying not to cut your stitches. That's important. I'm going to just cut around this cane. Put my scissors up to the stitch and cut one cut. Okay. If you have any of the strings on the back, go ahead and cut them without cutting the knots. There you go. This one is now done. Okay, we have one left, and that's baby Jesus, so we will do that one next, and then we are completely done with all the nativity characters, and we already have our bag done, so we're almost done. I will see you at the machine. Hi guys, I have my tearaway hooped, and we are going to start the last one, and this is baby Jesus. So first you want to do that placement stitch onto the stabilizer. So I'm going to go ahead and run step 1, and I'll come back and show you what that looks like. Okay, there's your placement stitch. Now you're going to want to put your fabric over that. Make sure your fabric goes all the way around. And then you're going to go ahead and run stitch 2, which is going to be your tack down stitch. So it's just going to make the exact same outline, but it's going to tack down your fabric. So I will come back and show you what that looks like. Okay guys, this is what it looks like tacked down. Now we're going to move on to the next step, step 3, which is going to be the placement stitch for baby Jesus's face. We're going to applique this. So you want to go ahead and do step 3 directly onto this felt. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I will come back and show you what that looks like. Okay, you can see there's the placement stitch. Now you're going to take your fabric. This is called appliquing. Anytime you put fabric on top of fabric, it's appliquing. So you're going to make sure you have a big enough piece of fabric to go over that placement. And then you're going to go ahead and run stitch 4, which is going to tack down this fabric. So I'll come back and show you what that looks like. Okay guys, this is what it looks like. It is tacked down. Now we need to take some applique scissors. So I'm going to use these ones. And I'm going to cut as close as I can around these stitches and get all this excess fabric off. Because these scissors are curved, they get really close to these stitches without actually cutting them. So now I'm going to get this cleaned up as much as I can. Whenever I'm appliquing, I actually spend some extra time making sure it's cut really well, because your design's not going to look very good if it's sloppy and the edges are uneven. So I'm going to take some time just to make sure I have like the same amount cut all the way around the baby Jesus's face, just so it looks nice. Okay, that looks pretty good. Then I'm going to take this lint brush. This is just the one that has like tape that comes off. You can also just use like Scotch tape, just roll it around your fingers and go like this, and it will get the little shards up. But there you go. That's what it looks like. So we're going to bring this back over to the machine and start doing some more of the details. So I'll see you over there.
Okay, I'm back at my machine, and the next step is to do baby Jesus's eyes. They're step 5. So I went ahead and added gray. Sometimes I think gray is a little less harsh than the black, and since it's a baby, I'm going to do them gray. So I will come back and show you what that looks like. Okay, guys, that's what it looks like. Now we're going to do the next step, step 6, which is doing the mouth. So I changed my thread, and I'm going to go ahead and stitch the mouth. There's the mouth, and now the next step, step 7, is like the creases in the blanket, the bunting. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I will come back and show you what that looks like. Okay, guys, that's what it ended up looking like. Now we are moving on to the part of the blanket where it's around the baby Jesus's head. I'm going to use the same creamy yellow color that I used on Joseph's and Mary's clothes. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'll come back and show you what it looks like. Okay, guys, this is what it looks like so far. Now the next step, step 9, is to do the outline around the head. So that is our cue to put the back on. So I'm going to go ahead and use the same fabric. So you want to flip your hoop over, put it over, and then you're going to want to tape it down so it stays in place. Okay, then you put your hoop back on, and we are going to go ahead and run step 9. I will come back and show you what that looks like. Okay, guys, it went ahead and did that stitch. So now we're on the very last step, which is step 10, and it's just going to outline the bottom. It's really, these 2 steps are just attaching the back to the front, and it's changing colors so you can choose different colors. So this could outline the white or cream or whatever you used up here, and then you can use a different color for down here. If you want the same color, you don't have to switch, but here, that's why the designer does it. So you have the choice of changing colors. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch step 10, and I'll come back and show you what that looks like. Okay, guys, we're done. We can unhoop it. This is what the front looks like. This is what the back looks like. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is tear all this tearaway off. Some extra here. I'm going to get all of it out. Okay. Now I'm going to take, if I can find it, these scissors, and I'm going to cut all the way around the design. Just getting close to the stitches, but being careful not to cut any of them. And another thing I do is I put the tip all the way right under the stitches, and then I just do one cut. It keeps me from cutting those stitches in the corners, and it also keeps me from having a lot of little short cuts that end up becoming jagged. So you'll have a lot of jagged cuts if you do really a bunch of little short cuts. Okay. Okay, I'm going to cut these extra strings on the back without cutting the knots, but getting them clean. Okay, and there's our cute little baby Jesus. There's the back. There's the front. Now, we are done doing every character for the bag, so let me just show you what we got. We got the zipper bag, which is in another tutorial. Go ahead and you can look for it. It's called, I think it's called the Manger Zipper Bag tutorial. So we already did this, and there's a tutorial for it. And this cute little bag opens. And then we have Mary, and we have an angel, and we have a wise man, and we have Joseph, and we have baby Jesus, and we have the cute little lamb. And I think I'm going to make another little lamb, a little black one. My daughter is going to play with this, so that might be cute. You could make different color sheep. And then one other thing, there's a little jump stitch between Jesus's eyes. I'm going to go ahead and get that with these little snips. And these scissors are great for jump stitches. It lets you get really close without cutting. Okay, there. Now it, oops. Now it's gone. Okay,
So that is the tutorial. We have walked through the manger bag and we've walked through all of the characters. They're pretty easy to do once you do one or two, but all these little characters fit in this cute bag. This is a really cute gift, and my daughter goes to a church preschool, so they would love to get this for the classroom. This one's my daughter's, but maybe I'll make another one for the classroom. But there you go. Now she has all her little characters in here, and it's super cute. Hope this tutorial helps, and I look forward to seeing what you guys come up with. Thank you.